Hi, welcome to the gun room. We're back. We're glad to have you back, and I'm glad to have this mob back. Nick, how are you doing?
Doing great, Tom. Thanks for having me. Hey, everyone.
What's the weather like over there, Nick?
It's about 40 Fahrenheit. I mean, we're settling into winter here, so the snow will be coming soon, I'm sure. But not as much as you guys have had.
It's terrible.
You guys are getting proper Midwest weather, so.
Absolutely frosty, snow under the ice under the snow rather, and I'm not very good in it because I'm 6'7", so if I tread out in it, I'm a bit like Bambi in that. Lauren, Barcelona, what's it like there?
Bit cold as well, have to be honest, but no snow as of yet, just lots of rain. But I'm happy to be back on the pod. Yeah, did you see it? Yeah. I tried to go with the third kit color. Most of the things I own are that color, so it's an easy one to nod to, I suppose.
Paul, what you been up to? Nice to have you back.
Yeah, good to be back again, Tom. Yeah, had a bit of a 2-week holiday in November to get a bit of winter sunshine, which always helps. And been spending the rest of my days since then in front of the box, being fascinated by the unraveling of the World Cup, which I think has been a marvellous competition so far.
Yeah, it's been good. We'll get to that in a bit. Jay, how are you?
Yeah, all good. Freezing. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't suit anyone, this weather. I was saying earlier on, when I get out of bed, I stick a toe out of bed, and then if it's too cold, I'll whip it back in, and I'll do it in a minute. Right, welcome to the pod. It's nice to have you back, podders and our podcateers. It's like Santa's sack this episode. It's bulging with goodies that you could barely squeeze down a chimney orifice. We're going to cover the World Cup. Was it a hit or a miss so far? We're going to find out from the Pocketeers. We'll talk about Arsenal players that represented their countries. How did they fare? We'll cover the WSL because we haven't covered it in between because we just needed that rest because, as I said earlier, the games have come thick and fast, so we need that rest. There's been injuries as well, and also we'll talk about the up-and-coming Premier League game against West Ham. But firstly, there's a fact from the BBC, good old BBC, who couldn't afford Ian Wright, by the way, could they? They've got all the other trash, but couldn't afford Ian Wright. Let's have a look at the cost. Italia 1990 was 9.4 billion. I won't read them all out, but it's obviously fluctuated in between. But Qatar 2022, 220 billion. It's phenomenal, isn't it? Staggering.
It's half of that Lineker salary.
Mr. Lineker, the moral compass, isn't it? I don't like what the country's doing, but I've got to stay in a top flight hotel, 2,500 a night. Now, before we get to the World Cup stuff, let's look at one of Arsenal's former players, the underrated Olivier Giroud. Did you know he helped Montpellier to win the league in France? He helped Chelsea to win the Champions League. He helped France to win the World Cup. He helped Chelsea to win the Europa League. He helped AC Milan to win the league for the first time in 11 years. And he's now become France's all-time top goal scorer. We've just amended this, 52 goals. And beneath him is quite a cast list. Henry, Griezmann, Platini, Benzema, Trezeguet, Zidane, Mbappe. Jay, what sort of player is Olivier Giroud? Obviously, hugely successful, but hugely underrated as well.
He used to drive me crazy. I've got to admit that he used to drive me nuts. But what
reason, Jay? Why did he drive you nuts?
He used to miss a fair few chances. He wasn't clinical, but he was a lot better player, I suppose, that most people gave him credit for. He used to get quite a lot of grief in the stadium. He played in that team where obviously the back end of Wenger, where the atmosphere inside inside the ground was a bit hostile, and he used to get sort of the arse end of it. So but what type of player was he? I suppose you could label him as a bit of an old school target man. He was good in the air, not the quickest, strong guy, and always gave us that plan B. He never quite nailed down a starting place. But yeah, I always quite liked him, but it's good to see him still doing well. You know, I didn't like how he sort of went off to Chelsea and helped them win the Europa a couple of years back against us in Baku. But I mean, he's an honest enough guy. I think he knows his limitations, but he's a good player, steady striker, and it's no surprise that he's done well wherever he's gone, because he's a good enough player, you know. But I suppose never going to be top draw.
Lauren, do we miss him?
I don't think so. But you know, you have to kind of wonder.
It could be
my
a plan
memory
B,
of
though,
him.
couldn't he?
Yeah. I don't know. I always remember him very similar to how I remember Lacazette. Like, you know, he missed some sitters. I wonder, is it we hold French strikers to such a high pedigree at Arsenal after having Henry? Do you know, that kind of way? I don't know if that's the case, or are we just unlucky with strikers? I mean, obviously we have Jesus, who's going through a bit of a goal drought at the moment. He's contributing in other ways on the pitch. I'm not sure. Do I think Giroud's going to come back and do a job for us? I don't think so. I think that ship has definitely passed. But, you know, it's certainly one of those shocking ones. I think if you ask people maybe in 10 years' time, you know, if it remains the same, you know, who's the top scorer for France, I don't think anyone would be thinking Giroud. It's definitely a surprise. I didn't even know he was that close to it prior to the World Cup. So it's taken me by surprise. But, you know, yeah, like Jay said, he's not one of the worst, shall we say, so you can't really begrudge him for it.
Yeah, he's one of those players that you either liked or you loathed, and kind of a lot of the Arsenal fan base made him a scapegoat. Paul, we're going to be talking about the transfer window. Sorry, Nick, I'm coming to you in a minute. We're going to be talking about the transfer window in a while. But what's happening there?
Well, just like we go on that, Tom, in terms of Giroud, I mean, you might know more about this than me, but in the summer of 2017, I think Everton had agreed a fee to sign Giroud, and we were really excited.
How dare you, sir?
And we were really excited about the prospect of Giroud coming to Everton, because the season before, we'd finished 7th in the Premier League. It was Ronald Koeman was in charge, and basically Giroud was the next signing to take the club forward. And I think I fell down because his wife was not keen on moving up to the grim north, and so kind of put her foot down a little bit, and the deal fell through. And we were really disappointed with that, because I often watch Giroud, and it's like this what if moment. What if he'd signed for us in 2017? Because I've always raised the guy. He's a really, really good team player. Premier League, he's played in the Premier League. He's played in Serie A. He played for his country. You know, he's 36 years old, and he left Maguire for dead for that headed goal. Absolutely left him for dead. So I've always raised him highly. I mean, I accepted some of the comments. He's not quite the flair player that you used to at Arsenal, and he's been judged, as Lauren says, against incredibly high standards. And you know, as Jay mentioned there, maybe some of the fans didn't quite buy into Giroud when he was at Arsenal. But to me, he's just a good all-round team player, and you could certainly do worse than consider a low move for him at the moment, given the situation with Jesus.
Yeah, I kind of agree that he is an old-fashioned striker and maybe doesn't fit everyone's brief, but he's still a very skillful player, and what he's shown in the World Cup as well, he's still got it, hasn't he, in bags. Nick, let's have a look at some of the players in the World Cup that performed for us. We have to start with Saka, don't we? We have to. Saka v France, 42 touches, 8 duels won, which was the most, 4 ball recoveries, 4 touches in the opposition box, 4 fouls won, 3 tackles won, 2 chances created, 1 shot, 1 penalty won. He's had a phenomenal World Cup and 3 goals, isn't it? So talk us through it. You surprised by him coming of age? Are you not really surprised?
No, I don't feel like
on
I'm
an
surprised.
international stage.
Yeah, I feel like when we see him week in, week out, we know what he's capable of. And I felt like Southgate over the last couple of years has been hesitant to like push him to get to this point. And so it was great to see him as a locked in starter and just being that guy on the right wing. And it was interesting being American.
Nothing changes. I've still got the antivirus coming up. Sorry, guys.
It was interesting being American, seeing him play against the team that I was supporting. I was like, oh my gosh, now we're going up against him. This is what he does to everybody else. And that was just weird being on that side of it. But yeah, he's tremendous. I can't believe he's the player he is at 21. I mean, he carried the team on his back in that game versus France. I mean, I didn't see England having an outlet. I didn't feel like they were going to score a goal or even create chances outside of him. He created the penalty. I felt like he created a couple other chances for Kane. And I can't believe he was subbed off. To me, that was kind of, I know the second penalty was after that, but I was pretty shocked to see that. I don't know if he picked up a knock or something, but yeah, he's really coming of age. And I mean, if he's not there, he is right on the edge of becoming a superstar. And I just don't know why he's not being talked about more.
We like it like that. Keep it down.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone coming in with a big Santa sack full of cash. We'll have that, boy. No, you won't. Let's talk about some of the others in the World Cup. Matt Turner, Jay. Obviously, he wasn't there forever, but he had a good couple of games, didn't he? Kept clean sheet. Nothing to whinge about, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he did well. I'm sure Nick watched him a bit closer than I did, but
yeah, I kind of threw it round there. I span it round. I went for the non-obvious.
He's another one. I think, like, similar to Saka, he's sort of enhanced his reputation a bit more on the sort of the world scene. You know, with some sort of eye-catching performances, made some good saves. I think the US in general did pretty well. I was quite impressed with them. I thought they looked a lot more solid than they have in previous tournaments. And he definitely was one of their better players. Turner, I mean, I think coming from the MLS and going into an elite Premier League club, and working with Ramsdale and the coaching staff at the club, he's going to improve. And I think you could see that. You know, his shot stopping especially was good, and his sort of sweeper keeper abilities have definitely improved, and he was coming off his line pretty well. And he did really well, and he's a good number 2. And he seems like a top guy, doesn't he? He seems like a really good bloke, and I think he's going to be. It's always difficult, that number 2 keeper spot, because we've said it before. You know, it's hard to sell it to someone, but it's also hard when they start to do well. It's natural, isn't it, that they're going to want to go and play somewhere else. So, you know, in a year or two, it wouldn't surprise me if he probably left. But he's definitely somebody that's enhanced his profile, definitely in this tournament.
Lauren, let's spin Granit Xhaka your way, which is always a frightening prospect. But Mr. Xhaka, how do you think just more of the same, wasn't it? Determined, fierce at times, solid.
Yeah, I think I always go back to the last Euros. You know, he wasn't having the best of time at Arsenal, but he had this determination in him when he was playing for his country, captaining them. And I think if you were watching him closely at that point, you would have maybe not expected him to stay at Arsenal and, you know, the massive turnaround that he's had, but you would have seen that his true character coming through. He's such a leader. He's so passionate, you know, he's just so solid. He's really, really great. I think, you know, when you're looking for, you know, your nation's captain, that is kind of what you want. You want someone who's going to fight, who's going to look. I'm not sure if you saw the Serbia game. Of course, it was a bit feisty. You know, he has that in him still, of course. I thought, you know, he did well. I was a bit disappointed that we didn't really see them progress as far as we had in the Euros. I have a bit of a soft spot for Sweden. But, you know, I thought overall he did very, very well. And he always represents his country very well.
Paul, Tommy Asu, desperately disappointed, talking about having time off away from football. Was he that bad? In his own opinion, he was bad. But do you think he was bad? Did you see anything that caused you concern?
Not really, no. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't start every game with Japan, because to me, he's a very, very good defender. And when you think, you know, he's played at the Premier League now for a number of seasons at Arsenal, you would have thought he'd be assumed to that Japanese team. But no, I didn't see any reason at all why he should be hypercritical of his own performances. I thought, you know, when he came on, he played well for Japan, who kind of overachieved to some extent as well. So, you know, to me, he's. I don't know what your perspective is from an Arsenal point of view, but I can see why, you know, he's not a guaranteed first team starter. Well, certainly as a squad utility player, he's someone you can rely upon to be called up to the team when needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Jay, Ben White, he went home early for all sorts of reasons, according to the media. Well, it's a sensible move, wasn't it? I mean, if there's something going on in the background, I don't really care what the reason was, as long as he's okay and he rocks up for Arsenal. But it was a sensible thing to do. If it's not going right, you don't want him there, do you? You want him out of the firing line.
Well, I agree with everything you've just said, but you also presume that it was something serious for him to pull out of an England squad at a World Cup where they've got a chance of going deep in the tournament. So, you know, I'm same as you, mate. I don't care what it was. To be honest, I'd be quite happy if all of them dropped out at that point because you don't want any injuries. And unfortunately, we've lost one of our key players, you know, due to injury. So to see Ben White, who's been immense, drop out or you know, go home was fine with me. You know, if he's not ultimately, like, if he's not going to play, then I suppose let him drop back in with the squad and, you know, join the guys out in, was it Dubai, I think, where they are. So yeah, quite happy with that. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it will come out eventually, won't it? But I'm not particularly bothered.
All sorts, really. Drug taking, being gay and all that sort of thing. Ben White apparently left England's World Cup camp early because of an alleged bust up with assistant boss Steve Holland. Apparently he wasn't up to speed with the tactics and all that sort of stuff. But as I say, I'm not going to give the story much oxygen because I
imagine that's the reason.
Yeah, as John Malone says, he says, I can't help feeling there's some kind of vendetta against Ben White by the football establishment. It's published by the Daily Mail. It's a spurious rumour. And that's what happens when you cost 50 million and you're at the top, the pinnacle of the Premier League. People get bent out of shape. Let's deal with the elephant in the room, Jesus, the injury. Nick, where do we go from here? Have we got enough ammo in the ammunition box, or do we have to go out and buy a couple of clips?
Man, it really reminds me of last season when Nketiah took over. We didn't get anyone over the line in January when Aubameyang left, and it's like, all right, Eddie, see what you can do. And fair play to him, he did, and for the most part. But this is a different beast. You know, we're not fighting for a Champions League promotion. We're at top of the table, so. I don't know. I feel
totally
like
different scenario, isn't it? And if you can't learn from your past mistakes in this area, now you pretty much need certifying sort of white coats and locked up.
Yeah, if I'm looking for positives, about a month of Jesus's rehab will be done without us having played. So that's a positive. And I think Granit Xhaka came back in 10 weeks. He had a similar injury a couple years ago. So but yeah, every point when you're at this time of the year, when you're in this point in the table, every point matters. So yeah, it's a bigger blow than I think I'm even realizing. I'm hopeful that Nketiah can do it. I know people are talking about Martinelli center forward. I can't see that happening unless we get another attacker. I know the Mudryk rumors have been quite hot lately, and I feel like that could really happen. But I don't know if that necessarily changes things. I don't know. João Felix. Those rumors have come up a lot, and you know, he's 100 million is a lot of money.
Sounded like a swear word, didn't it?
I don't know. I could see a cheeky loan deal being struck, and that's the best of both worlds. It would be an expensive loan, but for where we're at, I think we need to reinforce where we didn't last year this time of year. I think being top of the table, having lost your prize striker is a very good reason to reinvest and do it quickly.
I'm going all over the place here. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Lauren, he hasn't been scoring as many goals, but he does a hell of a lot of work, doesn't he? So we're not going to miss him so much as a striker at the minute, but it's the work rate, isn't it, we're going to miss? It's that ingenuity, it's that devilment. That's what we're going to miss.
100%. I mean, everyone who comes up against him knows how dangerous he is. I think, if I'm correct, it's been a while, so all the stats are a bit rusty in my head, but I think we're the only team to have scored in every game that we played in the Premier League this season, and we're suffering with our main striker having a goal drought. That just tells you how important he is. The role that he plays slightly deeper in the team allows a lot of players like Saka, Martinelli, even Odegaard to get forward and attack the ball and kind of get into those spaces that he, you know, traditionally should be filling. it's going to be a huge blow. And like you both said, if we haven't learned from last season, that's our own fault. And we really, really need to go in and get someone. We mentioned Drew earlier. I just don't think that's Arteta's ball game. You know, he really is building this young squad and he's always planning for the future. So even a loan deal, I just don't really see that happening. But I think, you know, it's the World Cup coming this time, blessing in disguise, a lot of time to kind of sit back, assess options that we have, and, you know, go into January, hopefully, fingers crossed, with the plan to, you know, to back us up for the long run.
Well, I think the hard thing is to sell it to an up and coming striker to come in and play second fiddle or third fiddle to Nketiah and Jesus. Jay's got to be a loner, isn't it? Someone experienced, someone who can just get us over the line in a tight spot.
Yeah. I mean, you like to think that we had a striker lined up for the summer, so just bring that guy forward, whoever it is, you know. And like Nick said, you know, I've also read the João Felix, and he looks similar in certain aspects to Jesus. He's good with the press, you know. I think he's he can come in, I think, and handle the pressure of being the main striker straight away. You know, he's got a good mentality about him. Played at a good level for years now, even though he's still quite young. And a loan deal makes the most sense. But I just, you know, you do lose obviously all the technical aspects of Jesus's game, but you know, you lose that winning mentality on the pitch, don't you, as well, up front. And how much that, you know, that's been spoke about in relation to Zinchenko as well, and how much of they've got so used to winning trophies that it's sort of rubbing off on the rest of the squad. And look, I'm not so down on Nketiah. I think he can come in and do a job. I think he can get goals, and I think the team ultimately, if we can get back when the Premier League restarts, and if we're lucky enough to only have lost, you know, Jesus, if that's the right way to say it, if we still got the majority of the squad together, I still think we're good enough to go and win the majority of the games, you know, against most of the Premier League sides. But that's with Nketiah up front. But it is such a huge loss, because I think we were all petrified most about losing Thomas Partey, weren't we? And we were all in how much that would affect us. But I suppose this is maybe not equally as bad, but almost as bad, because the drop off is quite big still, isn't it, when Nketiah comes in? So, but hey, let's just live in hope that they've got a plan for January. I'm sure they have. Mudryk looks good, but like Nick said, again, he's not really a central striker, so you might see Martinelli through the middle, or I think he's just gonna. If I'd make a prediction, it probably will be Nketiah, and then Mudryk coming in, because ultimately, surely, to get Nketiah to sign that new deal, these kind of situations and scenarios would have been spoke about, right? You know, if Jesus gets injured, you're the man. Now's your chance. It would be counterproductive and harsh on Nketiah, wouldn't it? If then, you know, say, for example, we go back in for Vlahovic. I know it's not going to happen, but say we do, we sign him, and then Nketiah is third on the list. It doesn't make sense, does it? So to me, Nketiah is probably going to be the man to carry us. But who knows? You know, you have to have faith in Edu and Arteta, because the signings they've made have all been good, pretty much. They haven't failed, have they? Mm-hmm. So
we're all doing that synchronized nodding. Hey, we're back.
I'm trying to be positive, because, like, you know, like the guys have said, losing Jesus, even, you know, you do lose his goals, but you lose so much more as well. So I'm trying to be positive, trying to put a bit of a positive spin on it. But yeah, let's hope they've got a plan.
Paul, let's break away from the Arsenal for a minute, not for too long. What have you made of this World Cup so far? I mean, there's lots to talk about, and we'll go for it, but let's have your initial impressions of this Qatar World Cup 2022.
Well, I think initially, I think most had huge reservations about the competition being held in the middle of the English football season, and what impact that would have on the players, whether the standard of football would be impacted by that. But I think generally, I mean, from my perspective, the competition has been very, very fascinating to watch from start to finish. It's been good to see some of the old guard teams, being ditched down. Brazil, Spain in particular, who I've never seen the team pass the ball so much to so little effect. Holland being Netherlands being knocked out as well. So there's been Portugal. So it's good. There's kind of been some real shocks along the way. It's also for me. I'm sure it has for you guys as well. The whole story of the World Cup's been Morocco. I think it's been absolutely brilliant that we've got an African nation pushed through to the semi-final of the World Cup, because it's been talked about for so long, the African nation breakthrough, and it hasn't really happened. I mean, they haven't progressed beyond the quarterfinals, but then Ghana in 2010, Cameroon in 1990. And it's just been fabulous to see that they've kind of become the representatives of the whole Arab Peninsula and Africa as a continent as well. So it's just been brilliant to watch their progress. And in particular, watching a team who doesn't have any household names as such. So I've been hugely impressed by the way they've been tactically set up, the way they've managed to create, to hold out against top opposition. So that's just been a fascinating story. And I think for me, the ideal final on Sunday, it's got to be Morocco against Argentina, because the atmosphere is going to be absolutely something else. And you're going to have passionate supporters, vociferous supporters from both teams there. So I really hope they do manage to beat France and get through. As for England's performance, well, I'm struggling to go along this blithe acceptance of, we played well and we're just unlucky on the day, because once again it was a massive opportunity for England this year.
There's something missing, Paul, for me. Having watched it.
Yeah, I'd agree totally. So I mean, I know Southgate's record gets lauded by many people, but we've lost the final at Wembley at home, which we were winning. We lost the semi-final of the World Cup that we were winning. We've dropped out from the Nations League A tier to Nations League B tier. We've lost a Nations League semi-final against Holland. So every time we've had the opportunity to make that next step, we just haven't done so. And I was hugely disappointed with England's general performance in the competition. I don't think we met anyone of any quality. Possibly with the exception of the United States, who I thought showed how easy we were to stop and negate. The other opposition we played, were really not inspiring at all. And when we came up against a team who, let's face it, it wasn't France's strongest team. There's no Pogba there, there's no Benzema there, there's no Kante there. And this kind of acceptance that, we played well today. Well, actually, we were behind twice in the game, which to me is never an encouraging sign. Only goals from a set piece. So I'm really struggling to buy into his optimism. So from my perspective, just going out, taking a step backwards. And once again, we had a great opportunity to lift the trophy, which we haven't done since 1966. And I'm afraid we just failed to take it. But I will say, Saka, I thought was superb. And I scratched my head in total bewilderment when he was taken off in the semi-final, because you can see the relief in the French back four when he went up and he said, God, I can have a breather now. Who's coming up there? Oh, Sterling, the guy has been training for 3 days because he's been back at his house in Surrey. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, that'll do me.
It was, it's quite maddening because England, France, let's go on to that. England, France, we had that penalty miss. But I think, Nick, from open play, we weren't that good. And if we put the second penalty away, then I think it would have flattened us really, because when we got on target, it was really soft sponge shots. And I really couldn't see us progressing. Chances fell for France, and they've got the ability to do that. There's something missing in the England setup. There's something missing in central midfield, some sort of midfield general, if you like. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, after watching, I think looking back, you could have put Foden central, then you have a midfield. I thought it was interesting that Henderson played every game. Not that I think he was bad. I think he probably did better than I thought. We have a midfield of Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, and Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson seems like the odd one out. I know a trusted lieutenant, as Gareth Southgate seems to use that term a lot, and maybe going with guys he trusts rather than the talent. I think you could move Phil Foden in central, and put another attacker out wide, because like I said earlier, Saka was the only outlet. I felt like he was the only one that was going to make something happen. I mean, Theo Hernandez had his hands full, and whenever he was in a 1v1, I felt like Saka had a chance to create something. And if not, he brought another defender, which is similar to what he does to Arsenal, brings another defender over, and then he can move it, and then hopefully there's a mismatch elsewhere. But yeah, I agree. I feel like something was lacking. I felt like going 4 in the back was the best thing for England. I know they've played 3 at the back with the wing backs for so long. I just did not think with the characters they had that was going to be the best route, and felt like, I felt like 4 at the back was a good approach. I felt like it was a proper knockout match to where France wasn't really on top either. I mean, their goal came from a contentious foul on Saka, having them on the break. And Tchouaméni hit a great strike, which I thought Bellingham could have done better. And then their goal from a cross, which credit to Giroud for getting the better of Maguire, which Maguire's been hitting balls out the entire tournament. So, I agree with Paul. I feel like Southgate has changed things to get them this far. I don't know how much farther he can bring them. And man, Harry Kane missing that penalty, I would have never thought I would have seen that, because the first one he absolutely buried. But I can't say that I wasn't happy about that. I mean, I'm not English, but was definitely pulling for them. But seeing
it's the accent gives it away, isn't it? Eh?
if you couldn't tell. But Harry Kane missing that. He's obviously not gotten the flack that Saka got when he missed his penalty. So thought that's been kind of interesting. We all know the England captain seems to get away with a lot, and as he does. But he makes that penalty, and who knows what happens. England's in a semifinal and has the best route to the final, and thought it was a missed opportunity. I can't think of anything specific that they could have done better. I just think catching France at that point, you got to beat the big dogs, and France has really shown that they've been there before and have incredible depth. Like Paul said, to do all this without Benzema is pretty unbelievable. Benzema and a host of other players. So their depth is just scary, and are able to replace and rejuvenate when needed, where other countries just cannot have that luxury.
Lauren, lots been said about Southgate with the substitutions, Saka off early, although I've heard apparently there was a little niggle. I don't know how true that is. He's now our most successful, unsuccessful England manager, if that makes sense. He's got us places. He's taken us to places we didn't want to go. Well, we did, but, we fell short. Is it time for new ideas? Is it time? Because some of these guys, they're not going to make the next World Cup, are they? Henderson, Walker, Kane. We've got to start phasing these guys out. Do we have to now bring in a new manager to do the next kind of rebuild?
Yeah, I think obviously Nick mentioned Harry Maguire there, and when one of your most influential players is an out of form centre back, I think that says a lot about how you're approaching games. One thing I would say is, obviously, as a neutral, the turnover of players that England have every time there's a new tournament is almost second to none. The amount of academies in the country, there's such an investment into youth players. I don't think it's a bad idea to have 1 or 2 very, very experienced heads. I was kind of scratching my head a bit when Henderson was being played, but like Nick pointed out there, you need someone who's a bit more experienced. Bellingham, exceptional. Also Declan Rice, he's solid as well, but with no disrespect, he is only playing for West Ham. I mean, he doesn't have Champions League experience. What's the conference now? What's the one below Europa? Whatever that one is. Yeah, he was playing in that last season. But it's not really what you need. You do kind of need to have, I would say, a slightly more experienced player there. Now, if Henderson's going to be that player next turn, I don't think so. I'm not really sure. But does it come down to the manager? To an extent, yes. But I think it's tough. I quite like Southgate. Obviously, I can't be too vocal about my support of any English manager, I'm afraid. But I've nothing against him. I think, he's it seems very nice and very honest, and he's not afraid to admit if he's made a mistake, I would say, which is quite refreshing. You always have to remember as well, managing on an international level is slightly different to a club level. Like, it's not the same. It's not week to week contact. You have to really manage, I suppose, on the fly and be able to say, okay, this is the situation that we're faced with now. How are we going to make the most of it? I'd say give him one more tournament. I don't think that's going to hurt anyone. Who else are they going to bring in? That's my next question. Do you know, that kind of way? There's no immediate obvious choice that's jumping out at me that would say, do you know what, he's definitely actually going to do a better job in Southgate. I'd say give it one more go and, you know, see how it goes. But in saying that, how long was the Moroccan manager in, and look how far he's gone. So maybe it's a good idea to freshen things up, you know. I'm not too sure.
It's a strange one, Jay. What's your opinion on England's performance throughout the World Cup? It was kind of slow, and then we got carried away with certain results. And again, we've been found to have a hole in our shorts, haven't we? When we've got to that crucial bit of beach warming.
You know what? I thought England did all right. I thought we did okay. I thought we played the game. I thought we played the game pretty well. You know, the tempo was good, scored plenty of goals, defended well. You know, I don't think Southgate did too much wrong. You guys feel free, please shoot me down, but I don't think Southgate did too much wrong. I don't think you can legislate for Harry Kane missing that penalty. He doesn't miss penalties. He absolutely rattles them week in, week out, top corner. And like Nick said, he'd already put one in. And I mean, we were watching it, and it's like, you don't want anyone else on that pitch to take that penalty. He's going to score it, and he doesn't, and England are out. And I think it was different from the Italy game in the Euros, where we kind of were hanging on for the majority of, well, definitely for the last 60 minutes of the Euros final.
I thought most of them were hanging on, weren't they? Yeah.
And he didn't, and Southgate didn't really do too much to change it. But in the game the other night, I thought, I mean, in hindsight, I suppose you could look back at, he didn't use Maddison at all. So maybe that was he probably look back at that with a bit of disappointment. But look, I thought England did all right. I mean, Saka got kicked all night, like he does in every game, and everybody can see it now. I mean, Paul, I don't know if you've picked up on it, but Saka, he gets refereed differently than everyone else in seemingly in Europe.
Yeah. I'd agree, Jamie. I was just totally astounded by the fact that he got no protection at all in that game against absolutely none whatsoever. And it kind of starts to think, because he gets tackled and goes down, that some referees start to think he's gone down a bit too often for my liking, therefore I'm not going to get. We've seen it happen to other players in the past as well, and I just for such a young player to be placed in that situation, I just don't think it's right, because he's such an exciting prospect, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Eden Hazard used to do it.
Yeah,
Jack Wilshere used to do it. They would collect the ball and they would wait till the very last second to release it, and then they'd get the foul. Jack Grealish, another one. And they ultimately, like you just said, they get refereed differently. So I don't know whether there was something noticed from Saka. I don't know whether he was limping or whatever. Strange substitution. The one thing I'd say about Southgate, I'd want him to be more flexible when it comes to Kane, because at the moment he's totally unmovable in that central striker. Unless we're like in the first game, he's been fouled when we played. I can't remember who it was where we beat him. Was it Iran? Was it?
Yes. Yeah.
We were like 6-0 up or whatever, and Kane's been fouled, and Callum Wilson came on. You want to see a bit more flexibility when it comes to that central striker. You had Rashford, who was you probably consider he had to be confident because he'd been scoring. He could have gone through the middle, stretched France a bit more. Because defensively France, they're not great. They're probably similar to us in that sense. They've got Varane, who's had a very average season so far, and the rest of the back line we're getting stretched. But all in all, it was a close game. France is still a really good side, like Nick said, got so much depth, and it was such fine margins. Like Kane, he should score that. And I know this is going to be club bias again, but the first thing that sprung to mind was his total lack of winning any trophies or being in a position where he's got over that line. You know, he's lifted cups, he's lifted league titles, he's been part of winning teams. You know, like, it surely makes a difference to your mentality. You know, if you've just seen Lionel Messi just take the mick, and because he's just used to it. He does it season in, season out. He's a winner. And I just couldn't help. The first thing that popped into my mind, you know, if it was Sergio Aguero taking that penalty, you know, or I don't know, you know, Thierry Henry or someone like that, you know, they're going to score it. And I just couldn't help but think, you know, the lack of success on a club level has to make a difference at international level. But when it comes, just going back to Southgate, I won't get rid of him. Like Lauren said, I'd give him another go, because I don't think he's done too much wrong. And I think where he has done really well is gelling the squad together. He's getting a group of players that the Premier League is bitterly competitive. You know, these players going hard against each other week in, week out. And it wasn't that long ago where you were hearing stories in England camps where they were all fractured. You know, you had your Liverpool players and your Man United players and your Arsenal players, and then the rest, you know, the squad was made up and they wouldn't even sit together and really mingle, where I think Southgate's done really well in gelling that squad together, using players like Bellingham, whereas other England managers simply wouldn't use English players that played abroad other than Beckham, you know, and Bellingham's played such a huge part, and he's a really, really top player. I'd give him another go. Again, Lauren made a great point. Who else do you bring in?
No one wants it.
Who does it? But who would you want? You know, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who I'd want to be managed. I mean, I'm not the biggest England fan, but I just think Southgate, I don't think you have to be an elite manager to be an international manager. I think all you have to do is to be able to manage big, you know, big egos and certain different types of players. And you know, you look at the managers who've won the major trophies in recent seasons. You know, you've got the German guy, I can't remember his name, the scratch and sniff guy. He's you know, he's an international winner, but he's not. He's never done anything at club level. You got Mancini. Okay, he won the Premier League, so I suppose, but that's at City. But look down the years. It can be so I just think Southgate's, you know, I think he's a nice guy as well. That's the thing. He comes across as a nice.
He's a yes man, isn't he? The FA love a yes man.
Seems like a nice guy.
Do that all day long.
I think in football terms, you don't get many. They're not built like Southgate. I think from an international point of view, I think that means a lot. I don't think he'd do well at Premier League level or club level. I don't think there'd be many clubs that would take Southgate. But international level, I think he's all right. I'd give him another go.
Right, let's do a quick round robin, if you like. Let's go with favourite game. Nick, what's your favourite game up to this point?
Oh, man. I guess to be honest, like the England-France game, the more we've talked about it, I just thought, like I said, it was a proper knockout fixture. Kosh to the Titans. You're getting to see similar styles go at it and seeing what came through. So the Dutch, who did they play? Argentina? When they scored that late goal.
Yeah, great game.
That set piece was unbelievable. I would have never seen something like that coming. So that was another
huge.
cracker.
Yeah, that was great. Paul, what's your favourite game?
Yeah, I'll go with Nick's second choice. I thought the Argentina-Netherlands game had everything. It had skill, it had venom, it had spice, it had sublime elements.
Like a London derby.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was a real competitive, you know, between two countries who absolutely do not have any time for each other as well, given the history over the decades of meeting the World Cup competition. So I thought, as a footballing spectacle, it just had everything for me. You know, sumptuous skills combined with, you know, quite spine-chilling cynicism at times as well. So it was, you know, it was fabulous to watch. The comeback was stunning. That free kick routine that Nick mentioned there was something else. And it's finished off by by Weghorst, Burley's centre forward, who's out on loan at the moment. The most unlikely World Cup finisher at that level you would anticipate. So yeah, that was just that. But that's me. I always prefer the games that are very, very close like that, and when a team comes back and almost gets over the line, as opposed to the games where someone wins 4 to 5. It's a great display from one team, but it's not really a competitive match. So yeah, I'd go for the Argentina-Holland game.
What about you, Lauren?
I'm going to go right back to the group stages, and it's between, I think it might be the very first game Japan played against Germany. I really enjoyed that one. And I think the reason I'm picking that one over the Saudi Arabia Argentina game is that Japan were able to do it again against Spain. And, you know, obviously we all saw the lovely stories coming out of their fans cleaning up, the way they left the changing room. It was just a nice news story to see, in addition to a really unexpected great match. So I'm going to go with that one.
I think Qatar will be remembered for that free kick. That is just blew your mind, didn't it? Why hasn't that been done before? Yeah. Jay, what's your favourite match?
Yeah, Netherlands, Argentina, without a doubt. That was the guys have already covered it. Loads of needle. You could tell on they hated each other, and the scenes at the end after the penalties, you know, of the players sort of taunting each other. Brilliant game, but you know, that's what you want to see. It means so much, and yeah, I can't add anything else to. The guys have covered it great. That brilliant match, great game.
I think for the first 45 minutes of football, I loved Brazil versus Korea. That was just something extraordinary. And Richarlison's goal, what a training sort of thing, wasn't it? It was just like
Richarlison.
Yeah, it's just all flashy, isn't it?
Richarlison, isn't it? Oh, great goal, great.
I mean,
goal.
I didn't want him to score, but it was absolutely priceless. And that 45 minutes was exhilarating. It was really like Brazil, and you felt with that 45 minutes they were going to probably trounce them 10-0 or something, and probably go on and win it. But anyway, let's push on to WSL. Lauren, this is your bit, lovely. During the
cover anyway.
3-2 loss to Man United, which was a bit unexpected, wasn't it? 40,000 crowd at the Emirates. United clearly dominated possession in the opening phase, quite lethal at set pieces. But I suppose the talking point was Beth Mead, wasn't it, with this RCL? That's really going to impact on Arsenal. Any news on that? How long's she out for?
Yeah, just to briefly touch on that game, that was a bit of a shock. First loss of the season, obviously, not great. It was the first loss actually at home at the Emirates as well for the women, which was really not expected. I think they just went in a bit too confident, especially after the last game against Spurs there. We saw them, they flew through it with ease. But we really, really have to give credit to United this season. They're coming out, they are fighting, they're really, really, you know, putting up a good competition. They're making it really tight up and around the top. You know, I think they're up there with Chelsea and Arsenal this season, something that City haven't been able to do. They've always kind of occupied that third place, but I think it really is going to go down to the line this season with United breathing down our necks. So disappointing, but, you know, I think if you watch the game, it was 100%. The mentality was all off. After the third winning goal went in, there was no real spark within the team to kind of even get a draw back. So it was really disappointing, but like you said, Beth Mead, that is an absolute blow. You know, it almost makes Jesus' injury look, you know, almost forgivable.
Well, the scale of it is she's scored 37 goals in 102 appearances for club, 29 goals in 50 for her country. You just can't get these players, can you? When she's out, and then you've got Kim Little's injury, you got Hurting, Williamson, Souza, Goldie. Well, it's one that we can put aside out, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. No, we're coming with there's few injury.
Lauren, if you lived over here, you'd probably get a game.
I'd stick on the boots. I'd help them wherever I can. You know, I'm ready. No, it's disappointing, of course, but you know, we have Williamson back now. Rafaela's also coming back in. We've been doing okay. We've been managing from that, but it's, you know, if we're pushing for, you know, the league, and the position we're in for Champions League at the moment is phenomenal, top of the group, really, really difficult group, you know. We really need to be looking at getting in a quality player to fill that gap. I mean, I don't think we're going to get someone in who is Beth Mead standard. I mean, she's almost untouchable. She's just exceptional this season. But the thing is, you know, these injuries, they're becoming really, really common in the women's game. I think there's 20 top players out across the European leagues with ACL injuries. So they're investigating that at the moment. So hopefully this is going to be one of the last of them, and they're going to figure out why they're so much more common in the women's game than the men's game to prevent things like this happening. But right now, Arsenal aren't in a great situation with it. But, you know, it is a bit worst case scenario, but we'll see how we get on.
This is normally what happens to the men, isn't it? We get to December and our bits start falling off. It's like Leopardsville. That was followed by a 1-0 home win against Everton. A scoreline that suggested it was tight when Arsenal made it look harder than it was, didn't it, really? The return of the Viv Meidema. Obviously, that rest period has fueled her tank again.
100%. She's back. She's back better than ever, I'd say. I think previous to this weekend, the last 5 goals that were scored were all her, and I think one was an own goal or something. So she's back in form. You know, she's that kind of player who's going to step up. And obviously, as you mentioned, that rest has done her the world of good. She just looks in fighting form when other players looked a bit lethargic and they're not really hitting their stride the way they were at the start of the season. So, you know, we're just onto the Christmas break now in the WSL. We have a few more Champions League games. So fingers crossed we can, you know, get a few players in over January and, you know, restart fresh. I can see the benefit of that for Meidema. So hopefully that carries out for the rest of the team.
Well, that goal that she scored was, dare I say it, Bergkamp-esque. It was just such quality. I was like, I had to watch it about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Absolutely delightful into the roof of the net. Then we had Aston Villa and we beat them 4-1, but it was a sticky start, wasn't it? Hansen's brilliant 6-minute strike really got the blood pumping and we were scratching our heads. What way is this going to go? And then we drew level with an own goal, an untidy own goal, which is always useful. And then old Viv rocked up again, 30 minutes with a volley. I think she's gonna, maybe if we're not looking for a player to fill Beth Mead's position type of thing, then Viv's there anyway, isn't she? And she looks like she's on blistering form. What did you make of that game, the Villa win?
Yeah, do you know what? Like I watched the highlights of it. It's just been football out at this point. I really can't squeeze in another 2 hours. Like, you know, it's trying to fit them all in, you know, that kind of way. So I watched the highlights of that one, but
I'll try to squeeze 20 pages into this pod.
Yeah, I understand. No, do you know what? It was a good game. It was kind of back to basics for Arsenal, let's say, back to scoring ways. Obviously a sticky situation, as you mentioned at the beginning. We always seem to kind of let in the doddery ones, I call them, you know. Manon's there, Zinsberger's there, and she can stop amazing shots, and then one just bounced in by her, and you're kind of thinking, is this the same player as last week, you know? But yeah, no, it was good, definitely good. I thought Katie McCabe, she was captaining with Kim Little and Williamson out. She really stepped up. She was back playing in the midfield role now that I suppose our defence is coming back from their injuries. So it was nice to see her playing that bit more advanced position. She's such a threat, and, you know, obviously she got her goal that day, on the day. So it was good to see. No, I think overall it was a decent performance, back to winning ways, and that's the most important thing, you know, the 3 points.
Just to fill in the gaps, Katie McCabe scored after 62 minutes. Agree with you, totally the best player, obvious. And Jordan Nobbs wrapped it up in the 84th minute. This result set a new club record for 8 successive away wins in the competition. Villa I think they've got problems at the back, but that result, we're equal with Chelsea on goal difference. Up next, we host Lyon on Thursday, 8 p.m. kickoff before the final group game against Zurich on December 21st at 5:45. What the hell is that about 5:45? who plays football at 5:45? Anyway, let's push on. We've got a lot to do, and we've been on the clock. Arsenal Lyon. Did anyone watch it in the Dubai Super Gilt Edge Gold Cup with Nobbs on? Nick?
No.
Didn't see it?
I didn't see it, and I couldn't watch today either. But from what I've heard, looked quite sharp and showed limited rust, and could get guys like Ben White and Thomas Partey back today. Granted, Xhaka and Zinchenko are close, and the rest of the guys outside of Saliba and Jesus obviously should be back by the end of this week. So seems like the Dubai trip did exactly what it needed to do. Arteta had some great quotes about Ben White, just saying, we know who he is, we love having him here, and we support him. And I love that. It seemed like a little bit of a backhanded shot at the England team. Again, don't know what happened, but love valuing him because he's a different bird for sure. But I love that. I think him and Arteta have a great relationship, so love having him back. He's going to be a huge part of the run-in for sure. But seems like things are getting done, getting Nketiah more minutes, and get him used to being the guy for the next number of weeks. I mean, he's going to have at least
here's the baton, sir. Here's the baton. Grab it with both hands.
There it is. Yeah, and this isn't new for him. He did it last year, so interested to see how he kicks on. But seems like he's not going to be Jesus, but we know he's hungry. But we also know, when he's given not just mop-up minutes. So far, he has produced. So excited to see him with those top guys. And it sounds like Fabio Vieira, the break has done him well as well. So came into preseason injured, had a little bit of a tricky time adapting, but sounds like the break has been good for him, and we could get a new beast for him. And we haven't even mentioned Emile Smith-Rowe and how close he is. So I don't know if he'll see the field at all against Juventus this weekend, but man, what a boost that would be, losing Jesus, but getting a fully fit rest of the team, and including Emile Smith-Rowe back. That would be huge. I think huge boost. I have no idea where he would play or what his role would be, but he's one of those guys you just know he has skill and talent, and hopefully he's chomping at the bit to get back and to be a part of this team. He's seen the team be top without him, so hopefully he's like, yeah, I want to be a part of that.
Jay, did you see the Arsenal-Lyon game?
No, I didn't. I saw the goals and
I saw the highlights, to be honest. I haven't watched that much football, and I'll own up now. World Cup, I only really joined the party in the quarterfinals because all the other tosh, it doesn't stimulate me. But I've seen halves and bits and bobs. So, but I'll tell you what stood out in that game was Vieira's input. He had one great assist, and the goal he took himself was phenomenal. So if you haven't seen it, it is available on YouTube. Please go and do that. Arsenal v Milan earlier today. We won 2-1. Martin Odegaard and Reece Nelson puts in the driving seat, and we've won a thing called the Dubai Cup. We'll probably, I don't know, keep some towels in it or something. It's not really as important, is it? If you're a Tottenham fan, I mean, you'd have it at the top of the stadium, wouldn't you? But did you see that one, Jay?
I saw Odegaard's free kick, which is lovely.
Oh, it's monstrous. Wowee. That was, he can do more of those as much as he likes, really. Talking about that, they did this thing with penalties after the game for an extra point. Is that a gimmick, or is it a genuinely good idea, a brilliant idea that we should bring into the Premier League just to knock some more points on? What do you think, everyone?
I'm going to just jump in there and say it's great for a friendly tournament like this, absolutely, especially with cup games coming up. You never know when you're going to end up in them in the FA Cup. I think we're out of the other one. So the FA Cup, you might see yourself in a situation like this where you have some of the, let's call them B players. They got an opportunity to practice today. Didn't hurt anyone, but absolutely not. Don't bring that anywhere near the Premier League. Thank you.
I thought it would get that sort of resounding, no, bugger off with that. That's a terrible idea. It kind of takes it into a different sphere, doesn't it? Like a different kind of entertainment anyway. So we've got Juventus on Saturday, but the one we want, it's the one we want, the one we're craving for. I put a thing on Facebook, and it's this dog who just can't settle down. And I said, this is me looking forward to the West Ham game. So let's start with Paul. What's your thoughts on the West Ham game? We'll come through that all right?
Yeah, it's going to be quite an intriguing game, I think, because this is quite unique. What's happening this season is that when you've had the 6-week break, there's been a World Cup sandwich in between two intensive fixture schedules in the Premier League. So I'm really not quite sure what to expect from the match. I mean, the only comparison I can make historically here was the 62-63 season when it was the coldest winter for years, and hardly any football was played between November and the end of January. So maybe the similarities with that, I don't know. I think so much depends on the frame of mind of the players who comes back to the team. So, you know, from the Arsenal perspective, you've got, obviously Saka, Martinelli, Partey, Saka have all come back from the World Cup. What's their frame of mind going to be like? Are they going to be upbeat? Are they going to be down? It's going to take a while to readjust. I think also for players, well, you go from having played under your international manager for 3-4 weeks, then you go back to playing with your club manager and readapting to the system as well. So I think it's going to be, quite a spectacle to see how all that pans out. Is it going to be the case that teams who have not had many players involved in the World Cup are going to be stronger than those who have players in the World Cup? I don't know. There's so many possibilities, outcomes here. I think from the Arsenal perspective, and you've all touched upon this, missing Jesus is a big blow, and how Arsenal get round that is going to be crucial, because the games are coming fast and furious, aren't they? You have West Ham, then Brighton, then Newcastle. So, potentially all winnable games with Jesus, much more difficult games without Jesus. So, whether from your perspective a London derby is the ideal way to kickstart the season again, I don't know. But what I would say is West Ham look very, very weak at the moment. And if you're looking for a London derby against arguably what I say is the weakest London team at the moment, West Ham would be your ideal opponents. But momentum's with Arsenal. The question now is, when you're top of the league, you're there to be shot up by everybody else. And I'm sure Arteta has been drumming that into the team in terms of resilience, in terms of coping with different situations. And I think I'm quite confident that Arsenal have got enough definitely to get over the line. I think that get 3 points from that first restarting fixture, and the bandwagon starts to roll again, and you start to generate and get results. So, but I think it's important to get 3 points in that game and just keep the pressure on the other teams below you. I think it's helped this week as well. So I think it helps in the week before the game that Arsenal aren't involved in the Carabao Cup, whereas Man City and Liverpool are. So that might be a factor that works to their advantage as well.
Paul's explored a lot of things here, hasn't he? He's given us some food for thought at that, Paul. Jay, what's your thoughts on the West Ham game?
Well, Paul covered it brilliantly.
Trouble is, I don't like that when you say, Paul, that it's they're a weak side. They're not going to be when they turn up, are they? For us,
well, we all know. I mean, there's no easy games, is there? They're all tough. They're all tough games, and It's a tough one, isn't it? Because it is a bit of a mystery as to that whether the teams who have more players playing, are they going to be more? Are they going to be sharper? The players that have gone deep into the World Cup, whereas the teams that don't have many players maybe slightly less sharp. I don't know, but you'd fancy us against West Ham. You would. They like Paul said, they've been pretty poor. But God knows, you just live in hope that we can hit the ground running. And to be fair, just going back to the games that we've seen recently against Lyon and obviously this trip out to Dubai, pre-season in the summer was key to our start to the season. We took that form into the actual Premier League and we hit the ground running, and we were so sharp early doors in the summer, and it seems that we've continued that. So that's really encouraging, and you just hope that we can kick on against West Ham.
Lauren, you brave enough to give us a prediction? I know you love them.
Oh, let me have a think. I do have to say I've really enjoyed the break with the World Cup and not fearing dropping points every weekend. I felt so at peace and just calm. It's been fantastic. I am confident with the win. I'm going to go with, let's go 3-1.
Okay. Nick, where did you disappear to? Were you just getting the hotline from Edu Gaspar? Were you just boning up on something? What were you doing? Give us your score.
Yeah, he said things are happening. So here first.
The hotline to the gas bar.
Yeah. I'm gonna go 2-1. I as much as I love our team, I have to be. I mean, I feel like we're gonna win. We should win. We're at home, and I feel like we're a different beast at home. I feel like having seen these preseason games, we're at a good point, but losing Jesus, and I'm not sure what Saliba's status will be. I know he's hardly played, so I feel like he could play, but he's so young. I don't think we'd throw him back in. So I say 2-1. I think we should still be able to take care of business.
Good one. Right. Obviously, next pod we'll be looking at that West Ham game, and we'll be talking about the upcoming transfer window, which is apparently the figures being spoken about in the media are between 50 million and 100 million. So it's quite a big drop off there. All I can say before we go is please have a brilliant Christmas. Thank you to the podcateers. And Jay, it's our anniversary. We've been together 2 years. Hey, it's just popped up. So you poor trodden on man, having to suffer me.
A beautiful relationship, Tom.
Stacey's not jealous of you. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thank you to the podcateers. I will see you all soon. Thanks for all your comments. And if you've got any emails, you can send them to itsarsenalthing4@gmail.com. We will see you after the Boxing Day brawl with West Ham. Thanks very much, guys. You take care. It's been brilliant to have you back. Thanks a lot. See you later.
Bye.